Hello, hello, my friends, and welcome back, welcome back. It is me. I'm someone. Yes, you are someone, and I am someone else. And today we are going to be reviewing the anti-capitalist mentality. Now, I absolutely. There are some. Does this sound familiar? Moments in this book. This book he's not a modern day book, by the way. 1956. He predicted most of this stuff in 1956. Think about that for a second. History doesn't often repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And this book is a perfect example of that. And he talks about how people who hate capitalism, and again, he is a pro-capitalist. I would say like pro like crony, anti-crony capitalist. Like he doesn't want bailouts, basically. Austrians, if you focus anything on the Austrian school of economics, right? Basically, they are totally against bailouts, including like if they want all society crumbles, they don't care. They're that prone to bailouts. They really do want bailouts to any extent because they believe bailouts create a bad incentive for malinvestment, which I totally agree with, by the way. But again, I think society is always prone to malinvestment. So I believe the Chicagoans are more right on the side of giving money to bail out our society. Anyway, that's besides the point. So besides the fact that he's an Austrian economist who hates bailouts, he's talking about people who particularly hate the word capitalism, particularly hate the competitive nature of capitalism, that want a centralized authority, well, not a centralized authority, but like a workers, thing where it's like, I just want money because I want to live or whatever. And he doesn't, and you're not going to provide anything to society. He's against that ideology, sort of, against socialism. And what's interesting is in I think it's chapter 1 or 2. I'm going to just look at the chapters real quick. Because each chapter has like, let me see it right here. Okay, it's chapter 1, where they talk about the resentment towards white-collar workers. And I think that would be like, I forgot what white-collar means exactly. I think it's, I'll read it real quick. It's on chapter 1. Resentment towards white-collar workers. Resentment of the intellectuals. The anti-capitalist. So this is more of like who hates capitalism, basically. They hate workers by the brain. That's what they hate. The pleas for the unelectrical, for its true value. Again, the problem with this book, while I do love this book in some instances, like I love the history of resentment of cousins. Basically, they got a business, but they don't know how to run the business. That's what he says by cousins. This book is very complicated. I'm reading it, right? I was just scrolling through it, and I think white collar probably means like intellectual worker, right? Like a doctor or a manager of some kind, maybe a manager of a hospital or whatever, right? And so, like, in the anti-capitalistic mentality, by the way, this is Mises right here. Mises is basically saying that the anti-capitalistic mentality is mainly within academics, and it's mainly with people who don't make a lot of money, which makes sense. If you think that the free market's screwing you over, but you don't realize that job's not valuable, but you think your job is valuable, you're going to want a system that's going to amplify your job more than others. Now, the problem is inherently you are going to, I think, create malinvestment, unlike the world has never seen before. If you think your job is valuable, right, and don't get me wrong, there are plenty of jobs that might be useful that are not getting paid a lot. I do admit that. But a teacher, a social worker, things we have like 2 million people graduating with those degrees, right? Sociology and education. Okay, let's say 2 million a year, right? Or maybe a little bit less than that, right? Then you look at like what engineers and medical doctors. Although we've limited the supply of medical doctors because of our Congress and the doctors union. So I mean, okay, that's a little bit more justified that we don't graduate enough doctors. But like things like things that aren't lawyers or law. Basically, if you're not going in top tier law school, don't do it. Most things, if it's not top tier in terms of schools for that particular subject, you shouldn't really do it. Trades are a little different. Like, trades, if people are desperate enough for you to do a trade, like a plumber, I am going to always pay a plumber over a philosopher. That being said, I do read philosophy books, mainly older books like The Anti-Capitalist Mentality. And right now, I'm actually going through Port Charlie's Almanac. This is a massive book, by the way. You can't tell. I could throw this book at someone and they would die. But anyway, that's besides the point. Just like, if you think your job in the free market's not giving you enough money, of course you're going to advocate the government or somebody to do something. You advocate for a labor union to destroy a business. I mean, and actually he goes through literature on what the anti-capitalists want to do. And it's actually pretty obvious that they want to destroy society. Or they want to at least change the foundations of society at least. And, you look at what Rousseau said and you look at what Karl Marx said, and it's absolutely right. People are born in chains. What they would say is, people are born in chains, but they're free or something. Or people are free, but they're born in chains. Basically, they say that the mind is unlimited, but because of the chains, the institutions, people are limited. And I would argue that's not really what's happening here. I mean, you're always going to have limited resources, so your mind might be unlimited, but your body and your resources you have are not. And so if you just spend a ton of resources like these socialists want, by the time the new generation comes around, there will be nothing left. And that's what we have been doing in the United States, is we have been living off the backs of older tradesmen, older people. And the problem is now they're starting to retire. And the only people who are willing to do trades are people who have come to a different country, this country in particular, to make more money. And so I like that we have immigrants. We need immigrants as much as possible. I'm afraid that it will change the culture inevitably. The locals won't like it. That's something. But if they're too lazy to work, right? I mean, that we have to be willing to change at least somewhat. Now, again, I want our Second Amendment. I want our amendments we still have. Right? Some of these people moving in don't want all the stuff, all the protections we have under our laws. And some of these people are like not people from Cuba, but like other countries. They voted in the same policies that made their countries poor. So it is it's inherently interesting to find out that the anti-capitalist mentality, in my opinion, the modern day anti-capitalist mentality, I think it's a mentality that transcends governments. I think if you move to the United States, you're not immediately gonna be, pro-freedom, especially since there's a political party to advocate for these immigrants that's inherently, I would say, a little bit more elitist but more anti-capitalistic than one party over the other. Both of them, I think, are pro-capitalist in some regard. I don't know necessarily. Like, we have two parties in this country. I'm not going to name them because if I name them, I'm going to offend some people. So I'm not going to name any names. But I do feel like one party advocates a little bit more for immigrants than the other one. That being said, it doesn't change the fact that a lot of people coming here, they don't have the best of resources. But I've noticed that children of immigrants are always better off than nearly anybody, even who are born in the United States. Generally, children of immigrants are very well off. Oh, I hear people coming in my room. That's not good. So, I'm if you want to read a very complicated book that is very hard to read The Anti-Capitalist Mentality. Does this sound familiar kind of book? That being said, goodbye.